The question was, how would Hollywood and science team together to catalyze this conversation and more positive science in film and television? And from the ground up is where we needed to start. There are filmmakers like Steven Spielberg and J.J. Abrams and television creators, Jerry Bruckheimers and the Dick Wolfs and the Milches and Bochkos of the world. These guys, they have the ability to call whoever they want. But what about all those other filmmakers? All the young aspiring. For every one of them, there are thousands of out-of-work writers, directors, trying to make it in some way. We needed to be a resource for the big names, but we also need to be a resource for everybody else. So it needed to be a grassroots effort. We felt that the best way to present this to the Hollywood community was through the Science and Entertainment Exchange and launching it with a 350-person symposium. And we had young, old, working, non-working, writers, directors, producers, production designers, actors, executives. And we had these rock star scientists that we kicked the day off. Unbelievable. V.S. Ramachandran, an expert in the brain and mind, Bonnie Bassler, molecular biology, J. Craig Ventnor, who mapped the human genome, Rodney Brooks, expert on AI, artificial intelligence, robotics, and Neil deGrasse Tyson, an expert on the cosmos, and of course the current Secretary of Energy for the United States, Steve Chu, an expert on global climate change. And they shared these amazing stories. And you've never seen Hollywood sitting still without taking their BlackBerries and their iPhones out and fiddling in their chairs. 2.5 hours they sat and listened to these stories. But we thought, what better way to present the Science and Entertainment Exchange to our peers than with a little taste of their own medicine? And so Jerry Zucker, who I work with, put this little short film together with Seth MacFarlane, a little help, and they created this little intro film that we showed at our symposium. So, Olga, if you want to cue the video. So, explaining the exchange is pretty easy. We connect entertainment industry professionals with expert scientists to help them create more accurate and engaging content for film and television. We're essentially a free 1-800-dial-a-scientist, which is a pretty good number to have on your speed dial. If you call our office, we'll just put you in touch with whatever expert or experts you need. It's that easy. And we've gradually been reaching out to the entire Hollywood community, and people are looking at us going, are you serious? We just call and you put us in touch with them and they can answer our questions? And the reason that is because scientists just want to be asked the question, and no one has ever really asked that question. The challenge we have now is conveying the passion that people in Hollywood are starting to have for getting it right, our desire to do it correct. And that desire comes from the top. You have guys like Ron Howard, who even before the exchange came, shot most of Apollo 13 in the Vomit Comet, with his actors dropping at 0 gravity, so that they didn't have to pretend that it was actually a part of their performance. You also have James Cameron, Avatar. I'm sure you guys all saw Avatar because everybody in the world did pretty much. A side note on Avatar too, the production designer on Avatar, Oscar-winning production designer Rick Carter, on our advisory board. James Cameron is also a supporter of the exchange. James Cameron took 15 years to develop Avatar because he wanted it to be right. He developed a whole language, a whole science, a whole world with accurate issues that are very relatable to our own world. And he took that time because he wanted it to get right. All these guys have their eye on the greater good. They want to make their marks as filmmakers. They want to tell stories. They want to deliver messages. And what better way to deliver a message to 25 million people than to actually put it in a movie? And where are you going to get the information? Get it from the guys who know, the experts. At our launch symposium, Neil deGrasse Tyson had a great story about James Cameron. James Cameron has been known for wanting to get all the details right, to the point where in Titanic, he actually wanted the chinaware, the dinnerware, on the set to be identical to what was on the actual Titanic when it sailed. So Neil got really excited about going to see this movie, and he got there. And he said he watched it, and he walked out, and he was absolutely shocked because they got the sky wrong. And everyone sort of looked at each other like, what is he talking about? He said, we know the exact time, the exact day, the weather, the season, the storm, clouds, whatnot. We know what the stars looked like when the Titanic sank from exactly that place that the Titanic sank. And Cameron got the sky wrong. And he couldn't believe it. This is a guy who pays attention to every little minute detail. So, of course, Neil reached out to James Cameron. He called all the offices, he emailed, he wrote letters. He got no response. He, of course, talked to the production assistants who were like, wait, why are you calling? And hanging up. Whatever, he moved on. So one day he's walking along the streets of New York, and who does he run into? James Cameron. And he stops Mr. Cameron, he explains the whole situation. Mr. Cameron, you gotta understand this. And James Cameron nods his head and goes, I guess that explains why we only made $1 billion at the box office. And I mean, what's Neil gonna say to that? So he moved on. Not too long after, he got a phone call from a production assistant saying he's calling from Paramount. Paramount is releasing Titanic remastered, and Mr. Cameron says you have a sky for us. They changed the sky to get it right because it meant that much to Cameron. So again, we have a filmmaker dedicated to getting things right. But why all of this focus? I equate it to method acting. Does everybody here know what method acting is? It's a style of acting where actors immerse themselves in their characters so that they have a better understanding of what it's like to see and feel like that character. And whether it's someone they're playing that's a true character, like Sean Penn portraying Harvey Milk, or whether it's a new character where they develop the whole backstory. It's immersing themselves in it. And this comes from early days of acting. Well, why can't there be method directing and method writing, method production designing? These creators want to immerse themselves in this world so that they get it right. We had 2 British writers on our movie Fair Game who had also written a movie about James Brown, the singer. And to better understand James Brown, these 2 guys from the countryside in Britain went to the deep south in America, very black country, and they hung out for months living together in a hotel room because they wanted to understand the feel of that culture down there and what it was all about. Alex McDowell, production designer on the movie Watchmen. He's also a member of our advisory board. He wanted to know what the lab looked like down the hallway and around the corner, even though the camera never saw it, because he wanted to be able to adapt. There's such a reality to making movies, how it works, where we go through, television as well, where we go through all these stages of development, and pre-production and production. And so many things change for a variety of reasons, whether it's budget constraints or whether it's time constraints. We can't go outside and shoot the exterior. We have to find a way to shoot it interior. That's some Corinne just shared with me at lunch about her experience working on CSI sometimes. So you have to be able to adapt. And to adapt, you have to understand that world better. So again, you need to talk with the experts so that you have that understanding. And this exchange has been just as much a cultural exchange for us, inspiring each other, because scientists are just as creative as we are, coming up with stories of their own, whether theories, hypothesis. There's a Dr. Patrick Soon-Shung, who's on he's a vice chair of our board of advisors for the exchange. He's a doctor who's come up with some revolutionary breast cancer treatments. And he shared a story with us about, there was a doctor who watched Fantastic Voyage, a movie about some scientists who get in a little ship and they shrink it down into a nano size to go into a body and help find a cure. Well, this scientist was so inspired by that, he said, I want to build a nanobot. So he did. Granted, people weren't inside of it and they didn't shrink it to size. He built an actual nanobot to go through someone's body. So we inspire each other both ways. It doesn't just come scientists talking to us. That's why it's a dialogue. And the key is suspending disbelief sometimes. Scientists are some of the biggest fans of sci-fi because they're willing to suspend disbelief. But if you're going to suspend disbelief, you have to be willing to live within the rules. And that's where it comes to getting the science right. We can make things up. Time travel doesn't exist, but hypothetically, if it does exist, what would the rules of that world be? We talked about the Big Bang Theory earlier, and there's a scene from that show where the young lady in it says to the guys, something along the lines of, I don't even know how many Superman movies there are. She says, my favorite one is the one where Lois Lane falls out of the helicopter and Superman flies over and catches her. And one of the, all the scientists chime in and say, oh, that was number 2, that was number 2. But one of them, Sheldon, says, yeah, but there are a lot of flaws in that movie. And she looks at him and says, yeah, like the fact that he can fly. And he says, no, 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 I accept that. I accept that he can fly. But Lois Lane falls out of a helicopter. She's falling at, X, blah, 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 square feet per second. She's reaching a velocity of 120 miles an hour. And a guy with arms of steel flies over and catches her. If she's going 120 miles an hour and she lands in arms of steel, she's going to be sliced into 3 pieces. It's all about living within the rules of the world you're creating. And scientists are more than willing to do that. As we content creators, we have a social responsibility to getting it right and to making it accurate. And the gentleman yesterday commented on the most important thing to them was story. I couldn't agree with them more. For us at Zucker Productions, it's all about the story. But as producers and developers, we also have to be able to infuse accurate and positive science into our stories. And Dr. Sabito shared with us earlier this idea that it wasn't about the first plot and the second plot, it was about the third plot. Find another way in, to incorporate it into the story. The Big Bang Theory, it's not about scientists. It's about creative characters and fun stories, interacting and engaging in stories that happen to be about science. And they happen to be scientists. Some of our stories involve science, but we forget about that. A fireman is a scientist. A NASCAR driver understands physics more than most of us can believe because of the gravitational pull and the wind resistance. We don't have to hit people over the head with science. We just have to find a way to expose them to it in an organic manner. And that's where the creatives come in, where scientists can start dialoguing with us and we can create that science messaging. And Doron said earlier, technology is all around us. You go in your car and you flip on the windshield wipers because it's raining. You don't think that's some sort of a technology. But he had up here, Flash of Genius, a movie about the creator of the windshield wiper. And that was something that the Sloan Foundation recognized as, that's good science.